Great to have you here with me today. I have Leo Aspite. How are you, Leo?
I'm great. Thank you, Amy. Great to be here.
Awesome. Thanks so much for joining me. You have such a wealth of business experience, and so I'm just so excited to dive into your journey in business, how you got to where you are now, but also the work that you're doing and the people that you're helping in business yourself as well. So for those of, us that are maybe coming across you for the first time who are listening to this, give us a little bit of your spiel around, who you are and who you help.
I'm Leo Aspot. I live on the central coast of New South Wales. I work with business owners. We run peer advisory boards. So we work with established business owners,
Mhm.
usually in that $1 million turnover and above space. We work with the owners and their leadership teams to help improve their business and in a way that changes their lives. And how we do that is with our peer advisory boards,
Mhm.
where we put non-competing businesses around a table and then we just work through their challenges
Yeah,
and
brilliant.
opportunities. Yeah.
Brilliant. And so a lot of the, people that you work with, what kind of businesses do you work with as, naturally across different industries because there's no competition in the room. So tell me a little bit around, how that works.
Yeah, it's quite interesting because I come from an engineering background. So I was expecting that I'd be working with a lot of engineering businesses
Yeah.
because that's my playground.
Yeah.
But really, it's so diverse. You have services, we have non-for-profits, we have NDIS businesses, we have legal businesses, accounting, we have all different, the services. Generally, business challenges are all the same, or similar.
Hmm.
It's just the industries are quite different. And with that diversity comes a lot of great background, to solving those problems.
Yeah, yeah. I used to work in the peer advisory space myself in the HR executive recruitment world, so I understand, the model really well and naturally, having a space to have those conversations because I think as you're growing a business and as you're scaling a business, particularly when you're in that sort of 1 million plus, but you're not sort of a Microsoft or a huge big
Yeah,
company, there's only a certain amount of people that really get it and really understand some of the challenges that you're going through and naturally you don't want to talk to your team about that. You need a confidential space where you can kind of vent and understand what's going on. So yeah, I love that you're not just with the engineering firms that you thought you were, you're with a whole bunch of different business owners to support them, and I think
yeah.
that's great.
It's an interesting space because being a business owner it can be a very lonely place, and to
Mm.
have those sort of conversations are really difficult.
Yeah.
I know when I've run my engineering businesses, it was a lonely place. There was no one really to share that business type discussion around, and so these environments are really healthy, and it's just a great place for people to talk business.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I really like that part of what we do.
Yeah, fantastic. And tell me a little bit around like your business journey in the engineering space and what sort of led you to want to take on more of the, coaching, mentoring, training role, call it whatever you wish, sounding board, whatever you like.
Yeah.
But yeah, how did you get started in going from, okay, I'm the operator, I'm the business owner to now, doing the work that you do to support others in business?
Great question. Very long journey, but I'll try to keep it short. Lots of different background, lots of experiences. So I've had like a sole trader business where I was selling my engineering services.
Hmm.
I've worked in corporates where I've got the senior executive teams, and running engineering teams across five continents, working for multinationals, did a lot of mentoring with young engineers, and then when we re-entered the business space in 2016,
Yeah.
in New Zealand, I was living in New Zealand and bought into an existing business and in that space, sort of developed a lot of the skills around business ownership. But
Mhm.
while I was serving customers, I started to really enjoy helping them solve their other problems. They'd come to you for everything.
Yeah.
And I was quite attracted to that. And then during COVID, I did some formal training around business coaching. That was a passion of mine. And then I thought, well, that's going to be my next part of my career, my next
Mm-hmm.
journey. So I did an exit plan of my business that I had for 6 years.
Hmm.
And in 2014, I moved into this type of business with the peer advisory boards. So it
Yeah.
was all planned and it was all worked towards.
Mm.
I had to exit the other business. I had to learn a lot of different strategies and experiences that maybe, a lot of people haven't done. And I can
Mhm.
share that, with the people that I work with.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think succession planning and, some of those conversations are really, really important around,
Yeah,
as you start to grow the business, naturally as a, founder or the owner, at some point you're looking at, how do I keep this business running without me, particularly if you're wanting to move on to other areas of,
yeah,
where you want to really dive into. So, yeah, I love
yeah.
that. And how was that transition for you going from, okay, I've, had these, bigger brands behind me at stages in your career, and then forming your own business and kind of being in the day to day, knowing exactly what goes on there, to then kind of stepping out into the world of being a business coach and actually sort of leaning on your expertise to then help others. What was that like for you?
Yeah, so exiting the other business. Business was in Melbourne. I was on the Central Coast, so that was a challenge in itself. So I knew that I'll be exiting within 5 years, and it
Yeah.
was 6 years.
Yep.
Came out, and in this journey, it's an absolute joy
Mm.
because I don't catch the 60 flights a year, so that
That's
was
a
a good bonus.
that's a tick. Get
Um,
some time back
the
there.
Yeah, and to be honest, that it's just the passion of trying to help businesses within our region.
Mm.
And I get a lot of joy, real lot of joy, just helping businesses succeed,
Mm.
overcome their challenges.
Yep.
So for me, this has been really easy. This is just true, pure passion now,
Yeah.
and it's a joy. I get up every day and I help lots of different people. They trust me with their businesses.
Yep.
That's a huge thing. I feel like it's a
Mm-hmm.
real honor to be able to work with these type of businesses,
Mm-hmm.
knowing that they're open and they're willing, and so I just love what I'm doing now. Like
Yeah.
there's been a lot of joy,
Yeah.
and just seeing people achieve their goals or their
Mm-hmm.
full potential, right?
Hmm. Yeah. No, I
Yeah,
think it's great. And I've loved, being on that journey with you as you're starting to find these right business owners to, really bring into the fold and support. Because I know when you initially reached out, that was one of the things that you were looking at, is going, okay, I know I can really help people, but I've got to find the right kinds of people. So tell me about, as you started to go out on your own. I know you've got the support from the alternative board as well
yeah,
and the
yeah.
models that they use. So tell me a little bit around like how you went about, growing the group, finding those right people and business owners, particularly for you and your groups that you were building.
Yeah, so when I first started, I've got a fair bit of experience in
Mhm.
startups and in just business in general. But
Yeah.
I have to say, it was like drinking from a fire hydrant when I first started. There was a lot of things going on.
Mm.
I didn't have the ideal launch that I wanted because
Mhm.
I had to have some medical time off,
Yep.
for a couple operations.
Yep.
So it was, I was a bit behind the eight ball, but
Mhm.
once this year started, I really kicked into gear. Focused on that I have multiple ways of reaching out to the audience, and
Mhm.
I just, applied all the marketing type stuff. LinkedIn is probably my number one tool,
Yep.
and where I felt comfortable, where I've got a large audience, and so I leaned on that a little bit,
Mhm.
and then just started to really explore. I didn't try to know everything. I just tried to be a bit of a sponge. The advice I got was for the first year, just follow the systems and processes.
Mhm.
And then, after a year, you'll work out, what you really want to do, and then you can tweak.
Mhm.
And I pretty much stayed in my lane. And with that recipe has come a bit of success. So
Mhm.
I'm grateful for that.
Yep.
And as I learn my craft
Mhm.
more and more, I'll refine along the way.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And you mentioned LinkedIn there. You had
Yeah.
a bit of an audience, but it wasn't really kind of producing the results you wanted, like when you first reached out to me. So tell me a little bit around that journey. What are some of the things that you've done a little bit differently that has, obviously like
Yeah.
made things a success for you?
Yeah, good point. I had a large network, lots, but it was a global network,
Yep.
and I'm working locally.
Yep.
And so even though I lived for 30 years on the Central Coast, I haven't worked here.
Mm.
Most of that's been in everywhere else. So
Mhm.
my audience wasn't really local. So I had to sort of pivot into building that audience. I had to pivot in to, and this is, Amy, if you remember, when I first came on board, my profile read like a CV,
Yeah.
and the Align Tribe and this process has really helped me define my ideal customers,
Mhm.
and then start to present myself properly to those ideal customers.
Yep.
And then I can reach out to those ideal customers. And now, so that type of activity, because I've done some of those things now, is starting to really pay off. I get a lot more conversations, but more importantly, I have conversations with the right sort of audience.
Mm, mm.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a really common thing, I think, whether or not people are sort of shifting from maybe like a corporate environment to something
yeah,
different, or, they might have had like a former life and then they've completely done a career pivot and changed and running their business in a completely different context. And often, sometimes we have a network on LinkedIn, but it might not be the right network to take you in the direction you're wanting to head moving forward. And that was the case with you, was like we had an audience, there was people there, but not necessarily the right kind of people. And particularly with the businesses you're working with, there's certain criteria that they need to
yeah,
hit, in order to be in that room. So I think,
yeah.
I loved the approach of, ditching the old CV version of LinkedIn, and really sort of repositioning things moving forward. I think has worked wonders for you. And obviously the conversation increases, and, filling up the room and your group as a result of that.
Yeah, and it sort of shows now, I'm the peer advisory board guy with the cap on. I'm starting
Yeah.
to get recognition.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's just now people are starting to know what we're about, whereas when we started this process, nobody knew anything about it. So
Yeah.
it's quite a comforting. It makes it an easier process when you're
Mhm.
engaging with people if they know a little bit about or they're familiar with you.
Yeah.
So for that, I'm really grateful. Pivot has really helped me a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So those conversations now become a lot easier. They're more joyful. They're more
Yep.
targeted. It's a better quality type conversation, and so yeah, it's a lot of joy. Whereas I used to be fearful of all of that stuff
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
because it was the
what,
wrong audience, right?
yeah. So what were some of the things that used to hold you back when it came to reaching out or finding the right people on LinkedIn?
So I guess just some of the things that held me back was not really identifying my true niche,
Mm.
and I think I've got that closer to that.
Mm-hmm.
That's just a continuum, right? It'll
Yeah.
change, but really identifying what does that look like and where do those people, exist,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and then how to reach those people. I was
Yeah.
always fearful, of the conversations to have, and I'm very comfortable now to have business to business conversations. It's just
Mm-hmm.
like it's a natural part of the day. But I was very fearful of that because I didn't really know clearly what my true offering was. So that brings fear and
Mm-hmm.
concern. And so I guess I always say once you've done it 1,000 times, you get the hang of it. So
Yeah.
just by in the doing and then the refining
Mm-hmm.
and the adjusting comes a bit more of a workflow, a
Mm-hmm.
pathway towards the process of connecting with the right people.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's really important because I know a lot of people experience, on LinkedIn, or whether it's just in business in general, and, whether it be email or whatever channel you're using, reaching out to people, potentially wanting to work with them, it can feel quite daunting, to be proactive, to take that approach. And so, sometimes we don't want to come across as salesy, we don't want to be a burden, all of these sorts of things, even with, naturally you've got a ton of business experience, Leo, and it can
Yeah,
still, be a little bit of a stop for some people. So I love that you've sort of moved through that and got, the clarity that you needed just to be able to have confidence in that space. And I think like you said, the conversations you're having are just at that higher level now, which is really great.
yeah, yeah. Just being able to reach the right audience,
Mm,
and so we're all talking the same language.
yep.
And so I truly understand what they're saying and
Mm,
where they sit. I've
mm,
been in their shoes,
yeah.
and so it's a nicer conversation to have.
Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm,
just listening to what their challenges are, and
yeah.
then maybe how we can map what we do
Mm-hmm.
to helping them with those challenges.
Yeah,
Mm.
absolutely. Because it just makes those sales conversations flow, and it feels more
Yeah,
authentic as well. And I think, like you said, it's just nicer when people have a really good sense of who you are, what you're about, what the group's about, who's a fit, who's not a fit, all that sort of stuff. It saves so much time, than having to go through it with every single person that you're speaking to. You can just sort of have that upfront in your marketing.
yeah. I spend a bit more time these days in qualifying,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
doing it properly.
Yeah,
So we
yeah,
end up, unless there's a really good fit both ways,
Mm-hmm.
we don't go forward because of the value that you can bring.
Mm-hmm.
So I spend a bit more time in those conversations just to make sure that there's some clarity about a fit, whether they fit the niche that we can bring the best out in,
Mm-hmm.
whether they're a person that can work with others if they're going to be on a peer board, and whether, they want to solve the business problems in their business, and are they willing to do the work,
Yes.
and if they start to fit into those profiles, it becomes a lot easier
Mm-hmm.
to move people forward,
Yeah.
but if you can't get any of those across the line, then there's a concern about where the value is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
You know, yeah,
Definitely. And I think it puts you in the position of being able to pick and choose the right clients as well. I
that,
think so many people go out there and they're like, I can help everyone. And it's
yeah,
like, that might be true, but it's, who are those handful of people that you would love to help that fit the exact criteria that you're looking for? And why don't we just go get them?
totally agree.
Yeah. So that's
Yeah,
awesome. And I hope you don't mind me sharing there, but one of the things that I really love about you is just your, bravery to try new things, even if it feels a little bit uncomfortable. And you've been given the nickname in our tribe as the selfie king.
but
And so we love, as much as you've got the cap on as well, you're also the king of selfies within the tribe, which is amazing because I love to sort of see that you're now able to showcase and share a little bit more of the work that you've been doing behind the scenes for so many years.
yeah, I love that, and I've got that out of being with the tribe, is that, through your exercises, Amy, we've flushed out, a lot of things that you can do, and I've adopted those.
Yeah.
And at first, it's very fearful, but now it's so natural. I'm doing it because I know I get a lot of feedback from it.
Yeah.
The sort of right sort of feedback, and
Right.
it's just taking those learnings and applying it. And from a fear point of view, there's a lot more fear in other things that you do in life. If
Hmm.
you have difficulties in life with health and all of that stuff,
Hmm.
there's a lot more fear in that. So for me, this is such a joy. If I have to
Fun.
learn a
Yeah.
couple things, somewhat a bit more relatable,
Yeah.
and then people get to see who you are, and
Hmm.
then they usually latch on to the integrity and trust part,
Hmm. Hmm.
and then we just go from there. It's all about building long-term business relationships,
Yeah.
and to help them achieve their goals. So
Yeah.
a little bit of fear is a good thing, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I love that. And I
Yeah,
think the way, LinkedIn is going and even, business in general with the use of AI tools and everything we've got now, I think we're heading into a world where that human touch is going to be so important and just being able to showcase like the person behind the LinkedIn profile a little bit is so important to differentiate, yourself in the market, especially when we're just hit nonstop, with AI content on our feeds and everywhere we look.
yeah. I'm a little bit old school, so I do like the face to faces where I can,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so a lot of our boards are all face to face. I've resisted the video; it's coming, but just the advantage that you get when people get together
Hmm.
is
Hmm.
that human element
Hmm.
that we so love, right?
Yeah.
Love being in a room with other people, like-minded people. So
Yeah.
yeah, I always with new people or with new meetings, I try
Hmm.
to have a coffee with them, just so
Hmm.
we get the human element down pat, the trust and the
Hmm.
the understanding, and I find that that's a little bit of a success tip, rather than just jumping into programs and then not, working out that there's challenges that you haven't addressed, from the beginning.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
And I think the advantage is that the people that you're attracting are local as well. So if you,
yeah,
meet for a quick coffee, they're not going to attend the meeting. So
exactly,
so it
exactly.
all has to align in that sense as well. So
Yeah,
that's great.
yeah, yeah.
So
So
yeah,
yeah.
so tell us a little bit about like if you can sort of look back and think around start of your business journey of getting this board together and now having your group complete and starting some other groups as well and using LinkedIn to do that, what are maybe one or two things that really kind of stand out from you for either a strategy that you've adopted from us or just a change of thinking or a change of belief that might support someone else that's listening to this if maybe they're in the beginning and they're feeling a little bit fearful about putting themselves out there and growing their network?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. I'm a real simple creature, so if you give me one chunky thing to focus on, then I do really well, And
Yeah.
so, in February, I went to a national conference in Perth and I saw the evidence of success of, what these boards do and met a lot of different people. And I was really, yeah, I thought, well, I'm going to do this. So I came back with one goal and, I just focused on that one goal and I started my first board in March and very quickly put a board together, which usually takes a bit of time, but I just focused on one thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I can give any encouragement to anyone else that's listening to this, is just pick something and just focus on it. And so what does that mean? I needed to get a board, which means I needed to get members,
Mm-hmm.
I needed to get a venue,
Mm-hmm.
and I just started to build everything I did on a daily basis around that one goal.
Yeah.
And then it just started to happen because I got one member, then I got two members, then and I started to really evolve, even though I didn't know everything I had to do, but
Mm-hmm.
in the doing I learned. But the one goal gave me the focus and direction, and then with that focus and direction, I got the learnings that I had to have through that journey, and so yeah, I think that would be my tip. Just keep it really simple. Pick one thing
Mm-hmm.
that you can measure and focus on, and really, really just hunt it down, and bring it on. And I lived and breathed that goal every day
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
until I achieved it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. And I sound like a broken record on the calls each week because you hear me saying to everyone, focus, focus, because I
Yeah,
think too often it's really easy in business to like have all these shiny objects and different things that we could be doing, but there's really only, a few key things that is going to really move the needle in
yeah.
the business and really start to grow. And, I love having that one target market, one focal point, one channel to really, get those people in. And you've done that very, very well, Leo.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think is the reason it just gives you clarity. It gives you
Mm,
such, and then you start to trim away what's not important, like
yeah.
in your daily activity. You just go, well, is this going to give me, the board table in March?
Mm-hmm.
Yes or no? And then I just, and then I booked the room. I had to fill it.
Yep. Yep. That's it. Nothing
I had
like a
to commit.
deadline.
I paid for it.
Yeah.
So, working backwards, just working backwards, what do I need to do today to make
Mm,
that happen on that at that time, and then
yeah.
yeah, and so lots of fear, but lots of faith
Mm-hmm.
in what I was doing, and then you start to attract the right people one by one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. That's awesome. And what's on the agenda next for you, Leah? Like if we were talking in sort of, 12 months, even 24 months from here, where do you want to be in the business? What does that look like for
All
you? We're on
right.
this great
So,
growth curve right now, so we're going to just keep on growing.
so someone asked me about my vision for this business.
Mm,
And so now I use it in my discussion every day because it
mhm.
makes me accountable to myself.
Yeah.
So when I came and started this business on the Central Coast, I said, look, I'm willing, I really want to give back and help local businesses prosper, and my motivation was I want to help them prosper so they will become good employers and employ our kids.
Mm,
And so our kids don't have to leave or drive down to Sydney to have a career.
yeah.
All right, real simple sort of outlook. And so then I thought, well, what am I going to do in the next 3 years? Now that I've sort of worked out how to do this a little bit.
Mm,
So what I said to myself, well, I want to help 100 businesses
mm-hmm.
on the Central Coast and beyond, because some of the businesses I help are outside of the Central Coast, but the bulk of them are there.
Yep.
In the next 3 years,
Mm-hmm.
so 100 businesses. So that's multiple boards. I already have a couple facilitators working with me. So, I'm putting in place a structure that's behind the vision of
Mm.
helping 100 businesses on the Central Coast prosper so our kids don't have to drive down to Sydney. And I tell people that. So
What's
now,
wrong with Sydney, Leo?
sorry.
And what's wrong with Sydney? I have to say it because I'm from Sydney.
Yeah, yeah, I am originally too, but it's just that, 35,000 people driving down every day. I just,
Yeah.
I don't understand that. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so the idea is to try to help this region
Mm,
become more prosperous, and small businesses is where it's at. They're the biggest employer. They're the most significant type people in our region, So
Yeah.
if I can do my bit as a business and just, open up opportunity, for the next generation and beyond.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. I think that's awesome.
Yeah. Well, now it's on video, Amy.
Yeah,
So,
it's on record now,
so
so we have to do it.
I've got to commit now.
We have to do it. We're on the way. We'll do it. No, that's fantastic, Leo. And I'd love to just, hear from you. Obviously, we've worked together, continuing to
Yeah.
grow the boards and groups and business as well. And, sometimes there's people who tried working with other people before and it hasn't quite worked out, or they're a little bit, nervous about, saying yes to jumping into a new program or something like that as well. So if there's anyone that's sort of listening to this who is maybe, in business, knows that they need to grow the business, knows that they need to use LinkedIn to do it, but is just a little bit unsure, what would you say to them?
I would say, if LinkedIn is your thing, then I would say Amy, Brett delivers and the tribe, all the tribe, the people is the right place because as a business owner in the past, it's a very lonely place. And if you're trying to build a business around the LinkedIn platform, then a place where you can gain knowledge and how to and structure, and a place where you can practice, and a place where you're safe
Mm,
and it's friendly and it's very positive. It's a great environment for people to grow their businesses. I really enjoy it. I just like the fact that we all have authenticity and it's a safe space. And you see, new people coming into the environment, pretty frightened, but you see them grow. And that growth just gives me such joy because you
mm,
see them coming in with lots of concerns and then in a short period of time, they learn some things that
mm,
they and get confidence and they can practice
yeah.
and share. And in a short period of time, you
Mm,
see transformation.
mm,
And I love that about your programs is that it's very authentic, and hence why I'm here, So I just enjoy it, and
yeah.
and and you've made me accountable, Amy. I don't know if you remember that, but there's a few times where you've held me to account.
I have, Leo.
Yeah,
Tough
so
love every now and then.
yes, yeah, the tough love, and that's what we need, right? As business owners, we need to hear it real, and we need to be in a place where we can hear that sort of stuff in a positive way. So that's what I would say to anyone that's considering looking at this platform. There's nothing stopping you achieving your business goals. Just get the right support around you, and this is definitely, especially in the LinkedIn space and beyond, is a place where you can really grow. Grow your business. So for that, I really thank you, Amy. You do a great job. Yeah,
Leo.
you've got such wisdom that we just all enjoy, and it's just all in your head. Like it's just any like we with those topics that we have, the open forum topics are my most
Mhm.
favourite part because
Yeah.
someone picks a problem, and we just break it right down, and it's just a joy. There's always something to learn.
Hmm.
Sometimes I don't say much because I'm just listening. Just really listening to what it is, and other times you're dissecting my problems and my
Yeah.
challenges. So phenomenal platform. I really encourage anyone who would like to some help in that space. This would be a great area to start.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for your kind words, Leo. I really appreciate it. And right back at you. We
Yeah,
love having you a part of the group. And, I'm very picky about the people that I let into the room, as you are in your group.
yeah,
And I think it's really important because, it does create that culture and that environment, which does, foster people's growth. So, yeah, appreciate that. And we're on our way to those 100 business owners, and we're going to get there. It's on record. So, it has to be
yeah.
done.
I'm a fifth of the way.
I
I've still
know.
got a long way to go.
I
So
know, but coming from zero, we're well on the way, which is great.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Just one bite at a time, right? So
Exactly,
yeah,
exactly.
I'm just looking forward to that. Such joy,
Yeah.
such joy in what we do. I feel like it's a privilege, when we're helping people.
Hmm.
And yeah, we've got the opportunity to do greatness, you know.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
if there's a business owner that's, already past the seven-figure mark in their business, they're based around the Central Coast area, they're listening to you, Leo, and they're like, this is a guy I'd like to learn from, plus some other business owners around me. Where can they find you? And this is a trick question, so you have to
yeah,
answer.
it is. So I thought about this because I knew you were going to ask me this. So the easiest way to find me is go onto my LinkedIn profile because I have everything on there. I have You can book a discovery call. You can go to my website. You can message me. Then my mobile phone's there. So it's Leo, Leo, Aspite, ITE, and I'm from the Alternative Board at Gosford.
There you go.
How's that?
Straight onto LinkedIn. Reach out to Leo in the DMs. Have a genuine good conversation, which I know you will have with people. Leo, go meet him for a coffee and go from there. So, Leo, I really appreciate it. As I said, I've just loved seeing your journey go from, very much behind the scenes on LinkedIn with a CV to now, out there and actively bringing in new clients that are a great fit for you
Yeah.
and growing the business. So, it's awesome. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you, Amy. It's been a privilege. All the best.